Expedition 33 won a ton of different awards in all sorts of different categories, so I chose games for this video that will match both the themes and the gameplay in various different ways. They won't always be the games that you expect either, so make sure to stay until the end. We'll get started with a game from a developer that got specifically thanked at the Game Awards. Lost Odyssey is a game by Mistwalker, a team of Square veterans who contributed to a lot of iconic games, including Final Fantasy, legends like Sakaguchi and Uematsu, and in some ways, it does harken back to old school feelings of those games, but it also does some things that are unique. One of those includes this set of side stories that some call the best writing in any RPG. It's a story of a world where magic power has suddenly flared up, caused major powers to develop horrific weapons that can cause mass destruction, and a group of people called Immortals. The main character is one of those Immortals, who is slowly gaining back his memories throughout the story, and there are a lot of really interesting themes in that which play out over the course of that story. This is a game that the developer of Expedition 33 specifically talked about as a primary inspiration for their game, and you can feel a lot of similarities in the melancholic atmospheres and the main narrative of Lost Odyssey. Unfortunately, Lost Odyssey only ever released on Xbox 360, but it's also available through backwards compatibility on modern Xbox consoles. Either way, you should give this game a try however you can. Shadow Hearts is a bit of a cult classic series and one of the games that I immediately think of when I consider games like Expedition 33. It has a really interesting setting that is somewhat like Lovecraftian horror and takes place in an alternative timeline of Earth. Shadow Hearts combat uses a mechanic called the Judgment Ring, which allows you to gain supernatural abilities by absorbing or making pacts with different entities. It's a really solid JRPG, one that gets even better in the sequel, and it actually has a bit of a similar system of rhythmic combat as Expedition 33. In order to get higher damage on actions, you need to hit the right timings on the Judgment Ring. If you mess up too much, then your attacks will be completely ineffective. This is a game that doesn't take the safe route with the way that it plays, and in the themes, it can be pretty heavy at times, but it also has a sense of humor that permeates throughout the game. You can play Shadow Hearts on PS2. Legend of Dragoon is another of the games that Expedition 33 fans should play. It may not have the same system of parries and dodges, but it does have an active combat system, and it does this by having you do combos using a system called additions. If you hit the rhythm correctly, the combo continues, and as those additions level up, they start to do more hits, more damage, and build up your gauges more. Legend of Dragoon takes place in a world that is falling apart in the aftermath of a war that shattered a golden age and left it in tatters. It has a similar sort of emotional resonance in the story, with an entire mythology behind it to explore, and with the combination of themes and active mechanics, there's a clear connection there that should appeal to fans of Expedition 33. You can play Legend of Dragoon on PS1, but there's also a mod that brings it to PC if you own a copy of the game called Severed Chains. They're currently working on an updated version with more features, but the current version still works, so make sure to check that out. One game that Expedition 33 fans will appreciate that doesn't get enough love is Baten Kaitos Eternal Wings and the Lost Ocean. It has a good amount of the elements that are in similar games, a vibe of creativity and art with beautiful and unique world that floats in the sky, a combat system that requires you to stay on your toes and actually think to succeed, but this time it adds its own elements, which are cards called Magnus that you use for actions. The idea of a Magnus is that you can put any item within it to store for later, and this is used in many different ways. For example, in side quests, where you need to find items and carry them, you can store them in a Magnus. And Baten Kaitos has characters with their own stories that have depth and nuance, and they wrestle with their own ideas about morality. It's a great game that deserves more love, so you should go check it out. Baten Kaitos 1 and 2 recently got a HD remastered version that is available on Nintendo Switch and PC. And of course, I have to mention another heavy hitter that many Expedition 33 fans will probably love, Final Fantasy X. Many people really love the path that Final Fantasy X's story takes, with a lot of twists and turns and some bittersweet moments. Much like Expedition 33, it may not end well for our heroes, but regardless, this is a game that marked a big shift for the Final Fantasy series, from the classic JRPGs of the first 9 games to the ever-shifting and changing push for something new and different. Plus, as Blitzball, so you've got to at least love that. It also has the sphere grid, which has a ton of customization and gives you the ability to pick and choose the way that you'd like to grow each character. You can play Final Fantasy X on all modern consoles and PC. The last game I'd want to highlight is Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance. It's a game that echoes some of the ideas of Expedition 33, but also has some large differences, making this the least similar game on the list, but one that I still think fans should give a try. The similarities are in the combat systems that require you to really pay attention to each step. In Shin Megami Tensei, that means knowing each enemy's weakness and exploiting that. Shin Megami Tensei 5 also takes place in a very bleak world, the ruined capital of Japan, Tokyo, but also in a second reality where it isn't ruined. It focuses more on the gameplay side of things, with a ton of different options for demons to recruit and ways to build your character. The biggest difference is in the deliberate solitude of it all. You don't have a party of characters to back you up, it's you and a constantly shifting menagerie of demons. You can play Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance on all modern consoles and PC. So that's it. That's a good amount of games for you to check out if you want something similar to Expedition 33. If you have any other games that you think would be good for people to check out, make sure to put those in the comments. For more suggestions and videos about RPGs of all kinds, make sure to subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.